Fantastic. Welcome to the first official workshop for Kakehashi 2024. My name is Nimesh, and I'll be your event moderator for this afternoon. I know it's a Saturday, and it's quite. I know there's a lot of things going on in Sri Lanka as well, so we really do appreciate you taking the time to join us today. And with that, again, a huge thank you to everyone joining us from all over the world, both in Japan and Sri Lanka and beyond. Um, I strongly believe that this will be an incredibly productive event for those of us joining today. And with that, we have a packed schedule for today. So with that, I would like to take this opportunity to formally open the proceedings for the first online workshop for Kakehashi 2024, organized by the SLPAJ. This event might not need much introduction, but we'll get to it later on. But as we move into the third chapter of Kakehashi, it has never been more focused and uniquely designed to connect Sri Lankan startups with investors and industry professionals, bridging opportunities across Sri Lanka, Japan, and beyond. And as we all know, Kakehashi aims to serve as a channel for startups to present their innovative ideas, highlight their unique value, and expand their networks. So our focus today, for our workshop today, is on launching, growing, and scaling with confidence, a key area for startups seeking to engage with any market. And before we proceed, I would like to take a moment to extend a warm welcome to several key individuals and organizations that have made this event possible and for being here today. Ms. Cesar Tambulugal, Embassy of Sri Lanka, who has always been a friend and an incredible support system for everything we do here at SLPAJ. Our guest speaker for today, Mr. Chalinda Abeykoon, an absolute pioneer of the startup ecosystem in Sri Lanka. It is so fantastic to have you here with us. And of course, Hiroki Oisan, representing Jetro Colombo, and Yamada Tetsuya-san from JICA Sri Lanka. And not only that, I would also like to thank all the participants who are here today, joining us today on this Saturday. Your presence only enriches this event and the discussions to come. And without further ado, I'd like to invite the president of SLPAJ to introduce a little bit about our organization and share our value and our purpose and a little bit about who we are and what we do. Please join me in welcoming Dilaka Hatrusingh.
Thank you, Nimesh. I'm Dilaka from SLPAJ, and good afternoon to everyone who's joining us from Tokyo, and good morning to everyone who's joining us from Sri Lanka. So I'm not going to take much time. As Nimesh introduced, I would like to give a small introduction to SLPAJ and what we do. So SLPAJ stands for Sri Lanka Professionals Association in Japan. And we are one of the 6 associations affiliated with the Embassy of Sri Lanka in Japan. And we established as an association around 10 years ago with the objective and the vision of continuously enriching and adding value to our stakeholders. So speaking of our stakeholders, we have divided our stakeholders into 3 categories. Number 1 being our members, and number 2 being the Sri Lankan community we have in Japan, and number 2 being the Embassy of Sri Lanka in Japan, the government of Sri Lanka, our sister associations, our partners, and the people of Sri Lanka. So in order to cater these stakeholders with different objectives, we have been doing different projects and events over the last few years. During the challenging times we had in Sri Lanka, we did few projects to support the Sri Lankan people. And also we had a few projects, some are still ongoing, with the objectives of finding employment opportunities in Japan for the Sri Lankans, how we can promote these opportunities to Sri Lankans. And another one being how we can promote Sri Lanka as an outsourcing hub for Japanese companies, especially within the IT space. And the other one is like how we support the Sri Lankan startups. Um, so Kakehashi is the program that we have been doing for the last 2, 3 years. This is the third consecutive year that we are doing Kakehashi. So we want to support the Sri Lankan startups. So I'm not going to talk much about Kakehashi because I think our Sri Lankan Professional Association's secretary and also the project lead for Kakehashi 2024 will speak more about Kakehashi for this year and the events that we have lined up for this year. So again, I'm not going to take much time. I just wanted to give a warm welcome to everyone who joined today. Thank you very much. And we hope everyone will stay together with us until the very end of this journey. As we as an association, we have planned many opportunities for everyone to grab. So good luck. And also I would like to give a shout out to all of our support partners. They have been very helpful for us to plan out the Kakashi program for this year, and also to the Sri Lankan Professional Association members who has been working very hard for this uh, project. So yeah, thanks a lot again and welcome everyone. And yeah, over to Nimesh again.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Dilaka. And as Dilaka mentioned, I guess the focus of this event today is around Kakehashi. So please let me welcome Shakir. Please take the stage and speak a little bit about what Kakehashi means to all of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Nimesh. So hello everyone. Good afternoon and good morning to everyone. And so today I would actually be speaking a bit about Kakehashi. So let me just share the screen and yeah, so we can have a better image. So yes, Kakehashi. So this is our pioneer event. This is our flagship event that SLPAJ conducts on an annual basis to support the Sri Lankan startups to establish here in Japan, and also to get connected with Japanese investors and opportunities from Japan. Uh, so SLPAJ, as Dilek already mentioned, we are a bunch of professionals here in Japan, trying our best to support Sri Lankans here, and also giving back to our country in Sri Lanka. So I will not go through the value framework because Dilaka has already informed. So let me share about what Kakehashi actually means. So Kakehashi is a Japanese word that means connecting bridges. So we felt, as we are from here in Japan, and we want to connect the Sri Lankan startups to the Japanese market, or not only the Japanese market, but also to the global market itself through the help of Japanese investors and their ecosystem as well. So this Kakehashi program we actually started 2 years ago in 2022. So this is our third year running. So we've been very successful over these past 3 years. The program itself has grown quite a lot in these few years. So today, I would be sharing a little bit more about what Kakehashi has to offer for the Sri Lankan startups. So now, firstly, let me just share about the objectives of Kakehashi and the value proposition of this program. Number one is for us to, unlock ideas and bridging startups to seed their mark. So this is what Kakehashi is all about. So under that, there are 5 key values that we try to offer through Kakehashi program. That is, number one is to amplify the startup visibility. One thing that we understand is that there are certain really great startups in Sri Lanka, but it's just that we do not have that opportunity to share the stories of the Sri Lankan startups in the global market or even in the Japanese market. So we, as the Kakehashi program, we want to, we want to bridge that gap, and we want to provide a platform for the Sri Lankan startups to get more exposure and to attract attention. The other one is, of course, forge strategic connections. So through this program, as we amplify the visibility of our startups, we want to, connect certain Sri Lankan startups with the networks that we have here in Japan. So as the program is expanding, we are also developing our network so that we can help the Sri Lankan startups better as well. So the other thing is the expert guidance and mentorship. So through the Kakehashi program, we host many workshops, and we also host many uh, workshops and seminars so that the startups in Sri Lanka can learn a bit more about the Japanese market, or maybe learn how not only the Japanese market but also to learn more about how to attract investors from a global perspective. So we try to do as many workshops and seminars. So today also is part of a workshop where Chalinda, he will be sharing his experience, and he will be sharing certain insights for the startups today. So another thing is access to resources and support. So through this program, we have been able to expand our own network in trying to get more accelerator programs and incubators to join the Kakehashi program so that they can support the Sri Lankan startups. One of the key things that we feel sometimes is that the Sri Lankan startup, uh, we do not have the right resources at times. So we need to look into the global market. So Kakehashi, we want to bridge that gap and be able to bring in some external resources for the Sri Lankan startups. Finally, it's the recognition and awards. Of course, we want to celebrate entrepreneurial excellence in innovation, economics, social, environmental impact, and disruptions as well. So these are one of the key things. These are the five objectives and value propositions of Kakehashi. So what is in it for the startups to join the Kakehashi program? One thing is that we are closely working with the Deep Tech Accelerator program right now. So I feel this is one of the biggest opportunities that the Sri Lankan startups can gain through this Kakehashi program. So I hope we do find some really good startups that can get into this deep tech accelerator program. So the accelerator program is, of course, is worth 50,000 USD, uh, which is a massive amount. That would be a great start for the startups as well. So we hope that you all can take advantage of this accelerator program. And another thing is like we will be offering a cash prize for the winning team of 100,000 Japanese yen. So that's another incentive for the startups to be a part of this. So the other benefits is that we will be connecting you all with global investors. We will be having workshops to sharpen your pitch and approach investors, and finally to engage with business leaders and experts from around the world. So as we progress through this program, we will be bringing in as many expertise and investors from different angles to come and listen to your pitch, and also to listen to your startup ideas. So we will be working as much as we can to bring those networks to you. So a little bit about the Kakehashi 2022. So Kakehashi 2022, of course, was the inaugural year where the SLPAJ partnered with ICTA Sri Lanka and started the program. And with the help of ICTA, we were able to attract 34 startups. And out of that, we did a selection process. 13 startups were shortlisted, and 6 were there for the finals. So the program was very successful. It was the inaugural program, and it was very successful. We were able to get one of the startups to join the Deep Tech Accelerator we were talking about earlier. And Kakehashi 2023, which happened last year, Uh, this was a year where the Kakehashi program was expanding its network within the Sri Lankan market. So Kakehashi was, partnering up with Jethro, Slascom, Lanka Angel Network, Trace, Mora Ventures. So the partnership was expanding over there, and so the event attracted applicants from 36 startup candidates. So through that, we had four startups doing that got selected for the final pitch. So with that said, I want to share a little bit about the Kakehashi 2024. So with the same partners that we had last year, we've been growing a little bit more. And with that, we've attracted 45 startup applicants for this year's program. And so this year, from the Kakehashi side, we've been spending more time in expanding our network in the Japanese market. So for the finals, we will be attracting more and more Japanese investors and Japanese companies to come and see the finals. So we've been putting more energy in bringing in investors to come and watch the finals. So there'll be more benefit in participating in this year's Kakehashi, as we will be having more and more companies to come and be a part of the finals. So in terms of our support partners, as I mentioned earlier, also Spiralation of ICTA is one of our key partners. Jethro, Oisan is here from Jethro Colombo as well. They've also been quite a support in terms of attracting Japanese companies. Slascom, the Sri Lankan Association of Software and Service Companies. They were also a huge support in terms of attracting startups for this program. Then we have the Lanka Angel Network, Trace, Mora Ventures, all helping us having this project as successful as it can be. So this is a testimonial of Jethro, the winners of Kakehashi. I would not go through it. It's a written document. It's a written statement. So would like if you all can have a look. We will share the proposals. We've already shared the proposals through the support partners, but if there are certain startups that did not have the Kakehashi proposals, we will share it with them. Share it with them if you all just reach out to us. So the event plan is as follows. So 3rd of November, we had the registration deadline. Thank you so much for registering with our program. We've had 45 startups register this year. And so with that, 16th of November. So today we are having our first workshop. So initially we had the deadline for onboarding agreement on the 15th. However, we felt that there might be certain startups still considering if they should do the onboarding process or not. So we plan to have it after today so that you all can ask certain questions if you all are having certain doubts. So the onboarding deadline for the onboarding agreement and the payment registration fee, the deadline will be on Monday. So it's just another just 2 more days to go. So if you still haven't done the onboarding agreement, I urge you all to be a part of this program. So after we've done with the onboarding agreement, then we will give you all a deadline to submit the pitch deck. I believe that most of you all have already submitted the pitch deck, but we will give you all a certain amount of time for you all to refine your pitch deck as well. And then we will have the deadline for the pitch deck on the 29th. So from there onwards, 30th of November, we will be having the second workshop. So for this, we will be bringing a resource person from the Japan side, or at least a global investor. So you all can clearly ask them some questions that what would a global investor look for when it comes to startups. And 14th of December, we will have the first pitching round, which will be through the Kakehashi program. There's one chat. Yes, so there was this one question asking if the pitching is done online. Yes, the pitching will be done online. Yes, so the first pitching round will also be done online, and okay, yeah. So the first pitching will be done online, and afterwards we will select the finalist, and then we will have the finals. Initially, we did mention that the finals will happen December 21st. However, after speaking with a few companies here, they preferred to have it in January. So, and we also, as Kakehashi, want to attract as many companies to join the finals. So that's why we are thinking of doing the finals in January. Okay, so that's the event plan. So as you all know, there is a registration fee of 10,000 Sri Lankan rupees, and the deadline is coming up on the 18th of this month. So definitely do make sure that you all pay within the deadline and also do the onboarding agreement so that you all can be a part of this program. So that's it from my side. That's a slight introduction into Kakehashi and what the Kakehashi can offer. I hope you all were able to get an image. If there is any questions that you all have about Kakehashi, please do reach us through our email, and we would respond as fast as possible. And yes, thank you. And I'll pass it on to Nimesh.
Thank you so much, Shakir. All right. And of course, all of this leads to what there is at the end of it all for our startups. The support we as SLPAJ and our support partners can provide to the startup ecosystem that have joined us here today and that continue to work with us. And it's about how we can help them take that next step. And on that note, I to share what the hands-on support from our side can look like, from Kakehashi, from our partners could potentially look like. Let me call upon Nelaka Haturusingha. He is an advisor to SLPAJ, the director of Omusubi Capital, head of foreign operations at Striders Corporation Japan, the director of Striders Global Investment Private Limited, co-head of investment committee of Planet 43, a deep tech accelerator. Also, again, I'm Nelaka Haturusingha. If you could introduce yourself a little bit and talk a little bit about what is at the end of this, or end of this all that for our startups.
Thanks, Nimesh. So Planet 43 has been there for 2 years now. This is the third time. What we have realized is okay, we give them a platform, you guys to give a platform to talk to foreign investors, interact with them, pitch maybe. But after that, there's no follow-ups for some companies. And then the opportunities that Sri Lankan companies get in terms of accessing these global markets, it's quite limited. And what we do here is just 2 months work, but I think the real work happens after that, because but just by doing 2 workshops, it's not enough for Sri Lankan companies to bring up that level and then talk directly with foreign investors, work with them, and all these things. I think Chalinda is doing amazing work in that sense. So because of that, I'm working for a company called Striders. Let me share. We are a public company in Sri Lanka, in Tokyo Stock Exchange. And then we have three pillars: hotels, real estate, and the investments. And we have a real estate arm, not the investment arm, that I head out of Singapore. And this is our portfolio companies. You can see two of the Sri Lankan companies are already there in our portfolio. We have been making venture capital support investments for the last 6-7 years in Sri Lanka. And now it has come to a point that we have started our own accelerator together with a partner called R3 Capital. This is from Luxembourg and Australia, as well as from Singapore. And this whole accelerator is supported by NVIDIA and Microsoft. I think this is a really, really good opportunity for startups, because we'll be providing hands-on mentoring for 6 months. And at the end of the 6 months, you'll be going through an IC investment committee meetings. And then if you decide to put money, and we'll be writing checks into your companies. Our co-investors are, along with Striders, there are co-investors from Europe as well as from Singapore. So from Singapore, it's the Hatcher. It's one of the large VC firms. And then from Europe, it's Pioterra. Pioterra is one of the largest water-related company out of Netherlands, and Striders. So we have been doing this program for 3 times now. And then we had the winner from Kakehashi year 2022, the first Kakehashi, Jendo. Jendo became the part of one of these cohorts. And I think you could talk to Kirti, and I think you know Kirti. Most of you guys have seen him, met him. You can talk to him and see what kind of support we gave it to him. For example, how to develop the product roadmap, and how to talk to investors, how to plan your exit, where how you can protect your IPs, and all the time at the same time how you can value your IPs in a way that, even if the company comes into a kind of bad scenario, how can you monetize on your IPs and stuff like that. But the main point is this is a very deep tech accelerator. And to come on to the accelerator, we charge around 150,000 US dollars. That's the program fee. But if you are coming through the Kakehashi program, we'll be providing it for free for one if you fit the criteria, and if you win the program, and if the investors think that you are a good fit for the accelerator, we will be providing this service for free. And it's, I think, this whole program cannot be valued at $50,000, because the value that you get, the exposure that you get is immense. And you will be working with experts from Europe, America, Singapore, and they'll be giving you hands-on invest support. And this is the criteria that you need to capture in order to be able to come into our accelerator. Mostly, since it's a deep tech accelerator, IPs are quite important. I think this is where Sri Lanka is lacking. So even if you don't have IPs, we can still come get you on board if you have a solid product, a deep tech product, mainly into the areas like climate-related stuff, healthcare, agriculture, or smart cities, things like that, which can add more value to the global market. So that this is something that we provide. At the same time, apart from the accelerator, we will be also as a professional organization, we are more than happy to provide that bridging support between Japanese corporates and then the Sri Lankan you guys, because always the language problem comes into play when you come to work with Japanese investors. So we are more than happy to provide that support. Myself is doing that thing already. I think Shakir from Mirai Consult, he's also doing such similar support. So I think we have a nice team here who will provide you support, hands-on support in terms of bringing your companies out of Sri Lanka. But one of the things that we all request you guys to keep in your mind is that don't think Sri Lanka is the market for you guys. Sri Lanka is just 20 million people there, and then the market is very small. You have to think global from day one. If not, all these global investors, global companies are not really keen if you're just focusing on Sri Lanka. So, as a professional organization, as someone who has been in venture capital, what we always say is, okay, think about the regional markets like Bangladesh, Pakistan, East Africa. If you can provide a service, a deep tech service, it'll be really good. I think Sri Lanka has that knowledge. We have seen things coming out of Sri Lanka. It's just the mindset, and then we are more than happy to provide that support in terms of change in the mindset and stuff like that. Even if you talk to my own portfolio companies like Algorithmics or Ro, they'll tell you how we have been providing hands-on support in terms of getting them out of Sri Lanka, and also to meet with foreign investors, and then bring their company to this level. So this kind of support, we are more than happy to provide you guys. And also, if you need, we are more than happy to provide one-on-one support also free of charge as an organization, if you are being a part of this Kakehashi. And if you have any questions, we are more than happy to answer after the session as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nilaka. I really appreciate you taking the time today and explaining what the hands-on support that we can provide to these startups and what that looks like. And of course, in the interest of time, I think it is the most important part of today's event up next, the start to the actual online workshop where we have our guest speaker talk about what this event is about and the workshop around it. So it is my great pleasure and our great pleasure to welcome you to the part of the event that we've all been waiting for, the official workshop of Kakehashi 2024. We are honored to have our guest speaker with us who brings a wealth of knowledge and experience in this field. To give a brief introduction, Our guest speaker today is Chalinda Abeykoon, a current managing partner of Nventures and a renowned pioneer within the Sri Lankan startup ecosystem and Lanka Angel Network. Chalinda's innovative approach and deep understanding of this space has established him as one of the thought leaders and a sought after speaker in this industry. And today, Chalinda will be sharing his expertise on how to launch, grow, and scale startups with confidence, providing us with both valuable perspectives and actionable insights. And please join me in giving a warm welcome to Chalinda Abeykoon.
Thank you, Nimesh. Aiboan, everyone. It's great to be here. And I think this is not my first time in the Kakehashi program. So thank you for all the organizers at SLPAJ and the rest of the organizations in that umbrella for facilitating this conversation. Thank you, Nimesh and Nelaka, Dilaka, Shakir, for all the kind words that you guys have been sharing all this time and inviting me. I'm just gonna I think I have about a half an hour. I've done enough of these sessions to know that nobody really likes to look at a presentation. So what I would prefer to do is I'll quickly run through a very simple presentation on your pitch decks, and I'll try to wrap it up in about 10 minutes max, and then we can have a conversation and additional Q&A that we can go ahead. Couple of things. One is I think Nelaka said something very important, and that is not to just think about Sri Lanka as a market. This is a very good place for you to innovate. And I think Sri Lanka's, if you look at the position that we have 180 degrees of opportunities, starting from MENA to all the way South Asia and Southeast Asia. And we also have very good relationship with all these countries, irrespective of our own internal political landscape. We've been very good friends to all our neighbors, and that's important. And the third thing is everybody loves Sri Lanka. They love coming here. Most of these people can come to Sri Lanka without too much hassle in terms of visa and all of that. So you want to be able to leverage what's really going on for Sri Lanka when you think about building something. Something that we tell our portfolio companies, and whenever we do these things here in Sri Lanka, is you have to have global aspiration, but locally inspirational. So that's the key: global aspiration, locally inspirational. Don't flip the two. Don't have local aspiration with global inspiration, right? It doesn't really work. So always think about what can we do in the region and use Sri Lanka as a test bed to kind of innovate, bring in the raw talent that we have and do things in a more resourceful manner. The second thing that I want to say before I get into the presentation is that growth always comes when you step outside your comfort zone, right? So make sure that you take full advantage of this Kakehashi program and the network that everybody here is bringing to you. It is something that you cannot access. And for the first time in a long time, when I started building companies 15 years ago, for you to get a connection, you literally have to fly to that country. You have to really, spend a lot of money, time, effort, networking your way through. Programs like this did not exist, and now you don't have to do all of that. You can do a lot of the things right here in Sri Lanka. A lot of the legwork can be done. So make sure you leverage this network, and it's all up to you. Nobody's gonna come and give you things on a platter, but they are open. So you have to really, if the first pitch doesn't work, don't worry about it. Go for the second time. Fundraising or building a company is not a zero-sum game. You're gonna fail on a daily basis, but it's all about you, getting up and running up, essentially. So with that, let me try and share my screen. Share. I think everyone can see my screen. Just don't worry about the date here. We do revisions. This is the latest revision that we have. And this is a very simple, I'm just going to quickly go out. I just want to touch a little bit about the values that we have. And I think this is quite similar to most of the investors, at least the one that we work with. So you got to be curious, but you have to be disciplined. And what I mean by that is when you're a startup, when you're an entrepreneur in the early days, you have to really be curious about, different customer segments, different business models, and how you're going to take your product to market and so on and so forth. But you have to have a discipline in order to do it. And what we see majority of the time is a lot of the entrepreneurs do, what we call it, throw the kitchen sink at everything and trying to hope that something works. So make sure that you kind of, avoid that. You have to be aggressive in your execution, in the way that you plan things, but you have to also be ethical. That's something that we look at, especially in Sri Lanka. We see a lot of people copying things, not just, the investors copying the entrepreneurs, but our entrepreneurs also copying from each other. And that's something that we very quickly identify. And then we want to kind of avoid certain things. We have a peer-driven culture. I think of all the things that we have said here, I think this is the most important thing. Sri Lanka especially is a very hierarchical society. And what I mean by a hierarchical society is that, it's about, where did you go to school? What's your surname? What did your parents do? These things, matter. And if it's something that is matter to you, that's great, that's fine. But we have a very completely peer-driven culture. We have this whole idea of having our arm around with our entrepreneurs, with our investors, and working as peers. And whenever we feel that there is a little bit of status in entrepreneurs, and they expect special treatment because they come from either pedigree or they become because they're entitled, we try to avoid those entrepreneurs. You got to be risk tolerant, right? You have to take risk. That's the whole thing about building a company. But you also have to be sustainable in the sense that you can't go and spend. I work with a company. I was rather brought into a company to advise many years ago. I think they raised about 100 million rupees, and they busted 40 million on putting up an office in Colombo, and then they were struggling. So, when I went in, it was very clear the biggest problem they had was they were not capital efficient in what they were doing. So it was not a factor of the fact that they're running out of money. They just, didn't want to suffer and build a company the way it should be. And the third thing is we are brutally honest. We tell people off, and it's nothing personal, but we are empathetic. If there's somebody's doing something wrong, we tell them, we are upfront about it, and we expect the same thing from them as well. So this is a little bit about the 5 values that we kind of run, which is also very common. I feel, especially when you're doing business in Asia or Southeast Asia. We have that whole cultural values that we kind of hold very close to us. Again, a little bit, again, these are common things, even though I've done it. We look at founder's personality, so if you're trying to be as us, we capture that really soon. And then especially because we get involved in early stage founders, we look at something called the founder problem fit or founder market fit. Sometimes we want founders who are solving a personal problem that they've faced, and not something that is just out there as an opportunity. Because if it's just outside in the ecosystem, you might not be empathetic towards it. So then, even if you're a really great entrepreneur, we would think twice before we kind of invest. We look at coachability. That's another part. You have to be able to, entrepreneurs are slightly, arrogant, which you need to be. All of us are. But then there's a fine line between arrogance and being able to coach. Prior exposure to risk, uncertainty, integrity, transparency, trust. These are certain things that a lot of the investors, especially in this part of the world, will look for. And that's why I want to kind of put some of these things, the fundamental things, before we get into the pitch. All right. Coming from a pitch standpoint, I think there's a lot of material out there. So the first and foremost thing I want to tell is don't stick to a template, right? A template is just a guideline for you to have. It's about how do you tell a story. So take the things off the template, but don't try to force or shoehorn your pitch into a predefined template that is out there. Now, this is not the most common advice entrepreneurs get, because the typical advice entrepreneurs get is stick to a template. I don't like that, because I realized that especially when you're a Sri Lankan founder, you're always trying to translate your idea in English, and then you're trying to kind of shoehorn it into predefined templates, and they always get stuck in it, right? So the way that we teach our entrepreneurs is slightly different. We talk about the best practices, and then we help them put that story together, right? So how do you tell the story? Make sure it's a single message per slide. This is the most important thing that you want to have. You can't cram too many things into one slide, and make the fonts bigger, right? The lowest is about 30, and have a clear, easy to read font, something like what I've included. I think we use Monsterette, or you have other Helvetica and all of that. You want to have a combination of business and emotion. So you want to know when you're pitching, as much of it is about your personal story and the problem, but it has to make business sense. Now, why do I say this? The easiest way to explain this is that entrepreneurship is about solving a problem, but then there are certain problems that by solving them, you're not able to make money, at least not in the initial stages, right? So you want to understand where you are in that value chain. And especially from a Sri Lankan standpoint, why this is important is that not solving the problem is also a solution in Sri Lanka, which we've done for so many years. So you want to make sure that there is a combination of business and emotions attached to the problem that you're solving. The way you do it is make sure that there's a use case based scenario, and that will allow the investor to understand what you're trying to do. So it's a use case. This is what is happening. You have to make it very, very simple for the investor. You have to be numbers over opinions. You have to have measurable benefits, and practice. There are ways to practice. We get all our entrepreneurs to use something called Loom. You can use it as well. You record your entire pitch, and then you can watch yourself pitching as well. And you can do 3 things. So this is a quick tip on when you do it. So when you use Loom, you record your presentation. There's a picture of you that also comes up. You just run through it. Once the recording is done, switch off the video and just listen to yourself. Then you will realize what's happening. What are the cues, that facial expressions, to the ways that you pronounce certain words. You will see certain things that you want to improve. The second step is you'll look at the presentation, but kill the audio and just look at everything else. Look at the flow. Then you will see the visual side of things. Then you listen to it with both together. So this is how you improve yourself, and then this is how you practice. And then the last one, make sure you're being honest. A majority of the time, people try to impress investors, and they're dishonest in the pitch that they do, which becomes the single biggest reason why we don't trust you at that point. So we turn off, and we don't want to kind of follow on. All right, so certain things. So from what I've said, these are some example. If you ask what's your purpose, to become the market leader is something that people generally say. What we would like to hear is to achieve an ARR of 100 million. These are again some examples that I put in, right? Don't use jargon. We have the latest tech stacks, and you will talk about the amazing technology. We don't care. We want to see, okay, we save cost by 40%. So these are all measurable things that is done. If you want to talk about the problem, you want to talk about deforestation, it's great. It's very high level. But if you can say, 100 trees are cut down every day, that shows that you have done the homework, you know the numbers, it's measurable, you know what you're talking about. So these are certain things that I've just used as examples of from the previous slide what I mentioned. Right. So what are the slides that you need to have? Again, I'm not giving you a template. I'm giving you certain things that you can include. It doesn't mean that this does not mean that you need to have every single slide for this. And B, it doesn't give you a flow. So it doesn't say that you have to start with the purpose, the problem, the solution, why, it's not like that. So for an example, if you are a very early stage company, typically what we invest in pre-seed and seed, you're not going to have a slide on unit economics because your unit economics are going to be, terrible because you're supposed to do things that don't scale. And the early stage, you don't have any unit economics typically come in when you get into Series A funding, then you need your unit economics to be great, right? So these are the slides that you want to have. So use this as a guide. Feel free to take screenshots. I'm happy to share this with the organization, and they can share it with you who are participating. That's not a problem. But make sure you have all of these slides. And then when you are comfortable in telling the story, you can just move the slides around, right? We've seen some people who starts with the market size and why now, and then traction, and then get into, and that's fine. It's all about how comfortable you are telling, expressing your pitch. The standard way is problem, solution, why now. This is a standard template so that you don't get, you don't have to really think. If you're somebody who doesn't want to think too much, that's great. And the reason why templates work is people like us, I would look at anywhere between 100 to 200 pitch decks a month. And it's very fast. We review them, we spend maybe about 10 minutes. And if it's too complicated, if it's too, too much jargon, if it's all kind of messed up, then we kind of, move on to the next one. So sticking to a template is good. It'll help you kind of, give things in a certain way that is digestible to the investor. But you want to make sure that you have a couple of things that I want to highlight here. You want to have your financials if you're going and raising capital, so that, that shows that, the investor understands that you have put some thought into this, right? Great if you have a demo. I'll highlight a few things. When you say market size, it's always a dollar or a rupee number, right? Having 1 million people or 22 million people is not your market size. That's just a number. You need to be able to quantify it. Things like, what can I say? Competition. I'm not really interested in, again, it might be specific investors. I, for one, don't really look at competition because I'll get a decent understanding of the company that is there. I'm also not too keen on market size when you're pitching early stage because, a lot of these things can be BS. What I'm really keen in the early stage is what is that problem? What is that solution? Why is it now? Why us is a good slide as well. I want to know what makes you the person to solve this problem. I want to know a little bit about the financials. They don't have to be accurate as long as you kind of have, there is a method to madness in what you do, and you want to have an ask, right? So what are you trying to ask for? And it doesn't have to be just capital. This I feel is a mistake that entrepreneurs make. The ask slide is always just the capital. They're not really putting in, maybe it's introductions. Maybe all you need is, access to market, an introduction, or, you're trying to hire key people and you're struggling and you need somebody to help you with hiring this thing. So you need to have that. That way, it shows the investor that you kind of thought through, you have a mature approach to fundraising. That's about it. I think I'm just going to stop sharing here. oops, my screen becomes small. And I think we can get into some discussions, some Q&A. And feel free to unmute yourself or raise your hand and ask. You can also put in the chat box as well. Let me see if I can see the chat box. Yeah. Okay, it's here. Yeah, we are open.
Chat box at the moment, but I'll keep you updated on that.
Yeah, there's a presentation. Yes, I can send it. I'll send it to the organizers and then they will circulate. Subodha Charles, yeah, you have your hand up. You can go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Chalinda, for the presentation. I hope I'm clearly audible.
Yeah.
One question that came to mind when you mentioned about the ask from the investors. Is it normal for a company to come in front of investors and not to ask for any money, but ask for maybe introductions, new expansions to the market? Does that usually happen?
It doesn't, but it doesn't mean that you can't have that, and that's perfectly fine. We do a lot of those as well. We have a whole bunch of companies where we haven't invested, but we've done introductions to customers, to partners, to and when I say partners, I'm primarily referring to sales partners, and we do that very frequently.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions?
So in the meantime, while others are waiting for thinking of their questions, just I would like to ask a few things from you.
Yeah.
Among the, I think you mentioned, you touched on some things, but among the companies that you see or that you get, what's the most, I would say, the concerning point or the weakness that you see in terms of Sri Lankan entrepreneurs, or as in your portfolio company, if you introduce them to a foreign investor, what's the feedback you get? Because that, I think if you can talk about that, those kind of weakness, it'll help the team also.
Brilliant. Yeah, brilliant question. I think the most common challenge that we see with the entrepreneurs, especially those who are coming from Sri Lanka, is that they're way too early to raise capital. I think what I've seen over the years. So for an example, when I started 15 years ago, when I said I want to be an entrepreneur, we didn't really use the word entrepreneur. I just said we want to start our own businesses. Then the sentiment in the market is that, oh, you know what, you're not smart enough to get a job, hence you're starting your business, right? So it was this kind of taboo thing that you did because you weren't successful in studies or whatever. But now it has changed. It's now sexy to be an entrepreneur. So people are just jumping into it. They haven't done the homework. Majority of the time, if I know more about the problem that they're talking about, then that's a red flag. So more and more people are getting into entrepreneurship because they feel that it's an alternative to getting a job, which is a bad thing. So that I would say the most common thing, not being able to kind of bootstrap, just go in, speak to customers, and this thing. I think the second one is we are very, very good at building great products, but extremely bad at selling. So the initial, especially from a technology standpoint, I get a lot of I see a lot of companies who have built this incredible tech product, but absolutely no customers. And now it's too complicated. It's either too pricey. They haven't really figured out whether there is an actual problem, and nobody's trying to kind of pay for it, right? And that doesn't work. You build and hope that people will someday buy. So that's the other common problem that I see. In terms of working with the international investors, I want to try and the number one thing is I think the way we treat investors is very important. All our portfolio companies We send out monthly newsletters, or they generally send out monthly newsletters and a quarterly update, except for the Sri Lankan portfolio companies. They're very, very bad at doing that. So the discipline is, I would say, the main issue there. But our companies in Singapore, UK, Bangladesh, India, they do send it. I think the Bangladesh guys send it every 10th of every month. Even during the crisis in Bangladesh, when they didn't have internet and when they didn't have this whole political unrest, they still managed a way to send that update. It was delayed by a couple of days at best, but they still delivered. I think we don't do that. I don't think we put a lot of effort to get in that investor, and then once we get that investor, we treat them like, oh, you know what, let me just get back to him, and then we only remember the investor when you need money again. So the way that we treat investors is bad. You have to build that relationship. You have to have a monthly, it doesn't have to be a board meeting, but you want to have your investor in your ringside, and that newsletter is a great way to do that, because what happens is then we try to open up our network to that person so that their fundraising becomes easier.
I think that
Sorry.
I think that's really, really valid point. These are the things that I have seen when I talk to Sri Lankan companies as well. The very same things. And then adding on to one thing might be also the fine line between confidence and arrogance
Yeah,
is something that I've seen in Sri Lankan tech founders. Maybe too confident that the arrogant, it looks like a bit of an arrogant attitude. So that the first 10 minutes you lose the point of the investors.
100%. I think, look, that's why I said, I mean, I would say I'm a little bit flexible. I like people challenging me, so I'm different in that sense. But if you're gonna come and challenge me, you gotta come and challenge me with numbers and not just opinions. I don't really care about your opinion. And that's when it becomes arrogant, right?
Yeah,
If you have something to say, that's great, but you need to be able to back it up with numbers.
exactly.
And if you can't do that, it becomes like a zero-sum game.
Yeah, I think we have a question here.
Yeah. Hi, my startup is based on manufacturing and selling specifically wooden toys,
Yes.
furniture, homeware, but am I eligible in this program? Okay. Yes, that's for the organizers, I
Yes,
believe.
maybe I'll answer that. So, so actually, even though we've been focusing quite a lot in the IT and the deep tech startup side, we are still, expanding our network in the Japanese market as well. So with that said, like recently, currently we are negotiating with Crew to come with an agreement. So and they positively responded. So we will be partnering up with the Crew, which is the largest startup accelerator, not accelerator, sorry, it's
Startup program kind
yes,
of thing.
startup program. So
Yeah.
basically, what they do is they connect Japanese startups with not only Japanese, they start international and Japanese startups with Japanese companies, right? So they have around 8,000 startups registered with them. So because of that, they have almost more than 500 large Japanese firms connected with them. So basically, these Japanese companies, they register with Crew, and Crew helps find the startups for these firms. So recently we partnered up with them. So through partnering up with them, what's going to happen now is for the finals, based on the startups that get selected to the finals, we will be approaching Japanese companies to come and watch the finals. So Crew will be helping us in attracting those Japanese companies. So for example, if there is a large toy manufacturing firm that is registered with Crew, they would be interested to hear your story as well. So this is something that we are trying to work on, and that is the reason why we are also postponing the finals from December to January, so that we can attract those Japanese companies to be a part of this as well.
And I think we have Kasun raising the hand.
Yes.
Yeah, just before we go into Kazun, just for that question, Chamila, I'm not too sure. My general approach is, take every meeting that you like, take an opportunity because you never know who you would pitch to, right? And that's what has really worked for me personally. Just going and having a conversation, because if you approach building a business, if you approach, okay, I'm only going to meet this person if there is something in it for me, like we call this zero sum game, right? You want to understand a little bit about game theory when you're building a business. If that is your approach, you're not lose your opportunities become smaller and smaller and smaller. So take meetings, go and this thing, just widen your what we call surface of luck, so that we never know, maybe there is somebody there whose wife or husband is in the toy business, and they will be like, oh, you know what, or has a neighbor in the toy business. These things happen, and it has happened. So Kasun, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Chalinda, for the nice presentation. On what you have said earlier, you said that Sri Lankan startups are like too early to raise capital, right?
Yeah.
So how can I have two questions. So how can a startup know when it is time to raise capital? That's the first question. And the second one, so how do you value a company like on the pre-seed level or seed level?
Right. Great question. So how do you know you're ready is because when you have validated. So that means you have some customers or some users using the product. There is some positive signals that you're getting, that, okay, there is some value. Now, you as a founder need to be smart enough to differentiate what is a signal, what is noise, right? And I'll give you an example. I get a lot of companies who have won so much of competitions, because there are a lot of competitions in Sri Lanka. They have awards, they have certificates and all of that, but zero customers, right? So that is noise and not a signal. So a good signal is when you have some customer or a user using the product frequently, there is some demand coming in, and now you will know that as an entrepreneur. Okay, this is something that there is, and then you can kind of go and raise capital at that point. The second question is, how do you value is, see, valuation is, you're never going to get your valuation right. You're either going to be extremely too high or you're going to be extremely too low, especially in the pre-seed stage, right? So it depends on the whoever who's going to put up capital. And it's about your ability to kind of negotiate it, right? And this is very, very important. I think this is also linked to an earlier question that I believe Nelaka asked, which is, where do, especially with Sri Lankan founders, where do they struggle? We struggle in negotiations, right? Everything in business and as well as life, right, boils down to your ability to negotiate. Not because you have paid your dues or because you are entitled for it. You have to be able to negotiate and get what you want, and you want to be able to do that, and the only way you get good at it is by doing it more and more. So that's the other way. The more you can put in a little bit of more effort into it and do some research and understand what have similar companies raised their pre-seed rounds during that, in a similar space, in a similar geography. So not US, not China, in a country like similar to Sri Lanka. So we take Malaysia as a benchmark sometimes, and then get some data around it and so on and so forth. Typically, for us, from all the companies that we've invested, Sri Lankan companies pre-seed, I wouldn't say goes beyond $2 million. Rather, we haven't done any. And then when you get into seed stage, it's about 3 to 5 and so on and so forth. But that number is very different when you're speaking to entrepreneurs in India or Bangladesh. There's a slight variation because the market size is fairly larger. So I hope I answered that question. There was another question. Are we allowed to request funds to upskill? as part of the program, I'm sure it is, and generally in investors, yeah, that's fine.
Prashant, about the offshore development, I think it's a different topic, but SLPAJ is working on that thing together with the embassy, so we can support in that part if there's anything. Yeah.
Yeah, great. I didn't actually understand that question, but yeah, great that you answered. Super. Anything else? I
And
think that's
from just
go ahead.
the investor's point of view, just another question about the exits. I think you had one exit
Yeah.
recently. But from the foreign investors' perspective, exits has been the challenge when looking at Sri Lankan startups, because when you put money, taking out is the hard part. No IPOs
Right.
happening and this and that. So I think there are two sides for this. One is the macro factors of the whole ecosystem is not there ready, not yet ready to that. And the other thing is the owner's mindset about an exit in terms of when there is when I speak to 10 founders in Sri Lanka, some might have an exit understanding, but most of them they don't have what the scenario could be. Any takes on that?
Absolutely. I think, yes, exit the macro, I think there's two elements. Macro from a Sri Lankan standpoint, we are not matured enough, especially when you look at the tech ecosystem. It's about 30, 35 years old. It's younger than me, the entire tech ecosystem. And then the startup ecosystem is about 15 years max, right? So we haven't gone through that cycle for it. But then I do see things changing, especially with the WS2 acquisition and all of those things coming in. Macro, if you go into the region, except for maybe India, even Southeast Asia exits have been super, super hard. I think so. The general advice that people get here. So there is this very famous question, which I kind of stole from Peter Thiel, is that, and I asked from entrepreneurs, and I asked this from even when I'm interviewing, is that what's a widely accepted norm that you disagree with? Right? So that's a question. So a widely accepted norm in the local ecosystem is that use Sri Lanka as a test bed, build, and then once the product is matured, kind of take it out. I completely disagree with that now, and I used to believe it in maybe about 5 years ago. Now from day one, I tell people to go out. And that's how we got our exit as well. It's a Sri Lankan company. It was in Web3 space. There's no Web3 market here, but we worked in Singapore and we built this, and we kind of scaled it a bit to South Korea, and then we got some interest coming from US, and then eventually it was acquired. So it's a very shorter stint, right? Now, this is not in the multi-billion-dollar ranges or anything, but from an investor standpoint, and I think we did about 48% IRR, 2x MOIC, and then the investors are happy, the founders are happy because they got acquired by a company. Now they're part of a bigger company, getting almost 15 times the salary that they were getting here, and then they get to be part of this large ecosystem. So I think that mindset has to be there. That's why I said off the bat, growth always comes from outside. So you gotta go outside. You can't be playing to your safe this thing. Sri Lanka, I feel that it is getting improved, but my general this thing is just go out from day one. Use the strength that Sri Lanka has is the great technology talent that we have, the access to market, the fact that we are very kind of adaptable. So for an example, even little things like English, even something here, even if we don't speak fluent English, the English that people speak, majority of the people can understand. But whereas sometimes when you go to Southeast Asia and you're speaking to people, you don't understand that English, right? So we have this whole accent neutral element to it. I always joke about this. I work with a lot of Indians because I've spent time in India, and we've done that. Even an Indian, even if they're like third generation, so they're born in the US, third generation Indian, you would know that that person is Indian by the way they speak English. Whereas a Sri Lankan goes on holiday to Australia and they'll come with an accent right a week later. So we are very adaptable in that sense. And that's a good thing. So understand what's really within your strengths and then play to your strengths. And for everything else, you kind of leverage uh, um, what's available in the ecosystem. So that's my take on it.
Thanks, Chalinda. Thank you. Shakir, are we in line with the timeline or what?
Yes, we still have a little bit of more time, but I guess
Very good. Yeah, there's one last question. I think, may I kindly know there's a relationship? Yeah, I think you can. It's up to you. By the way, nothing. So the question is around building and connection with the Japan IT startup ecosystem for offshore development. Nothing is gonna get presented to you in a platter. It's about your ability to negotiate, like I said, and this is something that uh, again, everything is connected, is that a lot of the times people feel that others have to help you sort things out. It doesn't. There will be an opportunity. It's about you going and converting it end of the day.
okay. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you so much for having me, guys. It's been a real pleasure. And if there's anybody who needs any help, yeah, I'm here to help and any way that I can.
Thank you so much, Shalinda. Really
Super.
appreciate
I'm
it.
just gonna drop off if that's okay with everyone.
All right. Fantastic. Again,
Super.
a
Cheers.
huge thank you, to Shalinda. It was great having you here, and hopefully we can stay connected and move on with the project.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you. Shakir, I believe there's one more quick question on the chat if you don't mind taking this. They want to know the number of companies that are
Yes,
going to be in the event.
yes, yeah, I'll definitely. So basically, we want to, of course, get many companies on board as much as possible. But so the first Kakehashi, we had 6 startups. Sorry, I think I was muted. Um, yeah, so for the first Kakehashi, we had 6 startups in the finals, and the last Kakehashi, we had 4 startups. But the thing is, like, we want to provide a platform for many startups as much as possible. So of course, if we do come across great startups, we will try our best to accommodate as much as possible. So for the finals, if there is like amazing 8 startups, we will see how we can, uh, we can fit everyone in. But of course, we do have a limit of time, and we need to attract some Japanese companies, and of course they would also be busy. So we need to consider the time limit as well, and how much support that Kakehashi and Sri Lanka Professionals Association can provide. But I would say, if you all can imagine, around 4 to 6 startups approach may reach the finals. It also depends on the quality of the startups as well. Yes.
Fantastic.
So Nimesh, maybe I can just continue with the
Yes,
timeline.
please. Thank you.
Yeah. So thank you everyone for joining. So like, let me just, at the start of the event, I kind of introduced about the timeline. So I'll give a brief about the timeline once again. Let me. So this is the event plan. As I mentioned, 3rd of November, the registration deadline was over. 45 startups have registered. Today was the workshop, and day after tomorrow, on Monday, we will be having the deadline for the onboarding agreement and the registration payment fee. So the registration payment fee, we've asked one of our advisors account, because Kakehashi, we still don't have a local bank account yet. So please do not be worried about transferring for a local account, because otherwise, if you have to transfer to a Japanese bank account, you will have to have a hefty transfer fee, I believe. So to avoid that, only we are using our advisor's bank account. And the other thing is, like, after that we will have the deadline for the pitching desk, and afterwards we will have the workshop 2, and the workshop so pitching round 1. So during the pitching round 1, all of the startups that have done the onboarding agreements, we will give you all a chance to pitch, and then we will have a small session, and based on that we will select the finalist. And once the finalists are selected from 14th of December or 15th of December, from there onwards, we will reach out to all the startups that did make to the finals, and get your logos, your pitching desk, and all the company profile, because we will be using this to promote for the finals. So we will be working closely with Crew for this. So Crew has helped, as mentioned, that they will help us attract as many Japanese companies for these finals. So based on the startup that goes to the finals, the Japanese companies, or the interested Japanese companies, will also differ, I believe. So that's why the finals will be in January, and we will let you all know as we progress. And yeah, so that is a major thing. So registration fee, it's 10,000 Sri Lankan rupees. Y'all can transfer. If you all have some presence in Japan, you all can transfer to the Japanese bank account. Otherwise, you all have to transfer to the commercial bank of our advisor. So that is it for regarding the timeline. And I'm going to pass it to Nimesh. Yeah.
Thank you, Shakir. As we kind of get closer to the conclusion of our event, we also have a message from the Embassy of Sri Lanka in Japan. So I'd like to express and cordially invite Sisat Tamblagala, whose continuous support and guidance have been instrumental in all of our success so far. Sisat.
Thank you, Nimesh. So it's a pleasure to be invited to speak a few words at the third Kakehashi program organized by the Sri Lanka Professionals Association. So first of all, I would like to congratulate the SLPAJ for organizing this for the third consecutive time. Kakehashi program, which is their flagship program, has been like a springboard for emerging startups, regardless of where their funding journey is. And we believe it's a gateway to gain access not only to the Japanese market, but also to the global market, which has a lot of potential for Sri Lankan startups. I'm happy to note that they have managed to attract 45 promising startups ranging from various industries. I'm sure all of these entrepreneurs bring to the table a lot of unique vision and a distinct value proposition, as well as passion to create solutions. So I hope all of you will take advantage of this program. But as I think Chalinda said, nothing is offered on a platter. You need to keep at it and be relentless in your pitches, because it's a very competitive world out there. So today's program, I think, is the first kickoff event, which gave idea about the essential skills in communicating with investors, which is a very important aspect for any entrepreneur who is seeking to expand across borders. And throughout these coming weeks, I hope you all gain a lot of exposure and hands-on support from the SLPAJ and the other resource persons they've gathered to get an idea how to increase your brand value and to build solid networks, and eventually to find promising leads. I hope you all really take advantage of this program. And as I think Nimesh and others highlighted, it goes without saying SLPAJ has worked very closely and continues to work closely with the embassy to make opportunities for Sri Lankans, making use of their connections and their expertise in working and studying in Japan and giving something back to Sri Lanka. This is something we as embassy appreciate very much. So I would like to take this moment to appreciate the SLPAJ membership for taking this initiative and creating a thriving ecosystem for the Sri Lankan startups to enter into the world stage. So I take this opportunity. I notice Oi-san has joined the meeting. JETRO is the Japanese government agency for creating investment and trade opportunities. And I hope as Japanese government has started investing a lot on creating and supporting startups, JETRO will be another bridge along with SLPAJ, which continue to support our startups. So I won't speak much, but lastly, I would like to wish all the best for the participants, and I look forward to seeing the impact y'all will make in the coming weeks. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Solvit. I really appreciate your kind words. And of course, that notion is very much reciprocated, and we're very grateful to be able to partner up with the embassy as always. And hopefully, we can continue the good work we've been doing. As I guess, as we actually conclude the program for today, one final question I wanted to, not essentially a question. I think there's been a lot of questions coming in, Shakir, about the presentations as well. Are we able to share all those presentations with them?
Yeah.
Could you
So actually, so regarding the presentations, we can share the Kakehashi PPT. We can share the Striders PPT, but we will not be able to share the Planet 43 PPT. So we will share the PPTs that we do have the authorities for. So yes, thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is to conclude today's event. Again, thank you so much to everyone who's been with us until the very end today. And it is my great honor to extend a heartfelt vote of thanks to all those who have contributed to making today's event a resounding success. And hopefully we can keep this going, and we can all end up getting the results that we're all hoping for. And first, again, I would like to express my deepest gratitude to Sesat Tamugala from the Embassy of Sri Lanka, whose, again, the continuous support and guidance have been instrumental in organizing this event and the success and everything that SLPAJ has been doing so far. And also a special thanks goes to our distinguished speaker for today, Mr. Chalinda Abeykoon, for sharing his valuable insights and expertise. His words have been genuinely inspiring, and of course, the value and the insights that he's brought to the event, and of course, for his time that is dedicated to our meeting today. Also, we are incredibly fortunate to have had the support of esteemed organizations, and I would like to acknowledge a few of them and their representatives. Again, Hiroki Oi-san from JETRO Colombo, Yamada Tetsuya-san, Ito Hideki-san, and Inoue Kotohi-san from JICA Sri Lanka and Japan. And crew, thank you so much for your support so far, and we continue and we look forward to working with you guys going forward. Crew, as Shakir mentioned earlier, is Japan's largest open innovation platform. Your contribution so far has been vital in ensuring the success of this event, and we look forward to continuing our collaborative efforts. I'd also like to extend my gratitude to our support partners whose presence and contributions have been invaluable. Mr. Sachindra Samaratna representing the ICTA, Ms. Eshini Samarasekara representing SLASCOM, Mr. Heminda Jayavira, Mr. Dhammika Marasingha, and Mr. Manodya Nabadeveva, apologies, from Trace, Mr. Kalinga Gunawardena from UA Startup Hub, and Vimukti Rahal from Nventures. Your unwavering support has made this event not only possible, but meaningful, and we are very grateful for our partnerships with you. Additionally, I want to express my appreciation to our sister associations who have always been a pillar of support. The Sri Lanka Association in Japan, Sri Lanka Business Council in Japan, Sri Lanka Automobile Association in Japan, Sri Lanka Academic Association, and finally Sri Lanka Students Association in Japan. Together, you have made significant contribution to fostering strong ties between Sri Lanka and Japan, and we look forward to what we can achieve and collaborate on in the future. And finally, to everyone who has attended today, your participation, your questions, and your enthusiasm has been truly appreciated. We hope that the ideas and the connections and the discussions we have exchanged and shared today will lead to even greater achievements and success. And thank you once again for all of you for making this event such a great success. We look forward to working together and to more success. Thank you so much.